Hi, welcome to Head Start, the podcast for race directors and the business of putting on races. Today, we have a bonus episode for you, and it's all about Tyvek. Yep, that wondrous paper-like, fabric-like material that is actually neither paper nor fabric that our industry uses to make race bibs. Well, that wondrous material is now in a bit of a supply freeze. That's right, the owners and exclusive manufacturers of Tyvek, DuPont, have informed printers that no more printing-grade Tyvek shall be made available until the end of the year, in an effort to divert production to medical-grade Tyvek, which is used in PPE and medical supplies and, not surprisingly, is in high demand lately. So what is to become of Tyvek race bibs? Well, I sat down with Marathon Printing president and third-generation bib printing specialist Ryan Zirk to find out. This bonus episode, like every other episode in our Head Start podcast, just would not be possible without the support of our podcast sponsor, Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up, the leading all-in-one technology solution for endurance and fundraising events. Did you know that more than 22,000 in-person, virtual, and hybrid events use Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up's free and integrated solution to save time, grow their events, and raise more? So head over to runsignup.com, that's runsignup.com, to find out how your event can benefit from Give Sign Up, Run Sign Up's market-leading technology platform for races. By the way, you wouldn't know about this bonus episode if you were only looking out for our regular episodes that come out every other Monday. That is, unless you subscribe to Head Start on your favorite podcast player. So hit that subscribe button or follow button, I think it is these days on some players, to stay on top of all the content coming out of the podcast. Okay, now let's get you all caught up on Tyvek. Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's great to have you on. You are the president of Marathon Printing, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
For those listeners who don't know you, Marathon Printing, why don't you tell us a little bit about the company and what you guys do for races and for race directors?
Sure. So we were founded in 1989 by my grandfather. The company was founded specializing in race numbers, running numbers, triathlons, bike events, and that continues to be our specialty to this day.
And from what I understand, you are one of those few remaining companies in the scene who focuses on running numbers, right? Which I think there's only maybe at best a handful left in the United States.
Yep, there's just a couple of us now that really that's our focus. I'd say probably 3 or 4 left that really that's our primary focus is the running numbers.
How is business now coming out of the pandemic? I guess things coming back for you guys?
Things are coming back very well. We've had a very good late summer and fall here. Things are going very well.
Excellent. And now we have this big shortage of Tyvek that we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
I think by the time this goes out, it will be the first special podcast episode we do. Regularly on Head Start, we do like a topic, something that's relevant for race directors, and we go in quite deep, and we release those episodes every second Monday. But I thought we would have the ability to do these special episodes in cases where special stuff come up. And we were catching up just the other day, and you were mentioning to me, which I found really amazing and fascinating and something to do an episode on, that Tyvek, which is the cornerstone material for the bib printing industry, is going through a bit of a shortage situation here that we're going to get into, right?
Yeah, so we found out about a month ago now that DuPont, who makes Tyvek, has really shifted their focus from their print grade Tyvek to medical grade Tyvek, which, of course, with the pandemic and everything makes sense, but also throws all of us printers that use Tyvek into a little bit of a panic and trying to figure out what to do and how to keep things going and get what we can.
Okay, that's super interesting. And we'll get into the situation with the Tyvek shortage in more detail later in the episode. I thought because we would be doing this, it might be just a good idea, and I found some fascinating information online, to go into Tyvek itself, which is sort of like the bread and butter of what you bib printers do, and also just a fascinating material outright. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Tyvek itself?
Yeah, so Tyvek is a very unique material. I don't know a whole lot of the history of it, but it's basically a very lightweight, tear-proof, waterproof material. And it almost has kind of like a fabric feel, even though it's a plastic. So it's very soft, makes it comfortable to wear when you're running or just for various things. But beyond printing, actually, it's probably most well known for its uses in wrapping houses. They use it in a lot of construction, and as I mentioned earlier, for medical usage, for like full body suits and various other medical things. So it's actually used for a lot of things other than printing. It's a very unique material and used in a lot of different applications.
And as you said, it is manufactured by DuPont, the
Correct.
sort of the chemicals conglomerate. So presumably you can only get it from DuPont.
Correct. They have the patent on it, and as far as I'm aware, nobody else makes any. I've never found anything even remotely close to the same kind of properties that Tyvek has.
Yeah, and actually, speaking of properties, I did some research online, and people should too. Particularly if they're a little bit geeky like I am, both on DuPont and on Tyvek. So some facts here that I think are going to be fascinating. First of all, to the material, which you said is quite unique. It is quite unique. It has a few other properties. As you say, it's used quite extensively in PPE, in like medical attire and wrapping stuff. It's also used in, like those FedEx envelopes that you get that feel a little bit fabricy. That's Tyvek too. And as you say, a big part of it is sort of like wrapping kind of like weather protection sheets for the construction industry, because it has a few properties that make it really unique and helpful, and fascinatingly, both for wrapping and for bibs, if you think about it. One is that it is very resistant to tearing. And, runners would know that, right? I mean, you can scrunch it up, you can do all kinds of it, but it's very difficult to tear. As you say, it's fibrous, right? So it has that kind of like papery, textile feel to it that you can print on and feels quite soft. And one of the other fascinating, I mean, it's also very easy to sterilize. So it's perfect for medical applications. But an interesting thing, which is really a bit mind-boggling, which again makes it perfect for bibs and for wrapping buildings, is that it is 100% waterproof. So water cannot penetrate, but water vapor can penetrate. So basically, you can sweat through it, but you can't splash water on it and it will get soaked, which is really interesting, right?
Yeah, breathable. So it doesn't hold in anything. It kind of lets, like you said, those vapors, sweat, moisture, it doesn't trap that in. So very, very cool in a lot of its properties.
And with regards to DuPont, which is another fascinating subject. So they produce Tyvek. As you said, I think,
Correct.
I think they're the only people who can produce Tyvek. And DuPont, for those who don't know, I was just looking up, it's on Wikipedia. They produce a ton of very profitable kind of like materials, they've patented that we're very familiar with. So they do nylon, they do rayon, they do Teflon, which, goes on to like all the pans and stuff and other properties as well. They do Kevlar that, we know from body armor, but it's sort of a million different applications. They do Corian, which is a material that my sink is made of and stains like I can't tell you like how much time I spent cleaning that thing. So it's DuPont make their money out of producing magical materials like Tyvek and finding applications for them. And they've done really, really well for themselves. So now, as it pertains to bibs, when you guys, the bib printers, when you buy Tyvek, what kind of form does it come in?
So for us, we buy it in flat sheets, cut sheets, but you can also, it can be produced or purchased and printed on in rolls as well. For us, we use sheets. And I believe when it's produced from the factory, they basically produce it on a big roll. The big roll sold to a mill that then cuts it down or takes it from the big roll to a smaller roll and then they sell it to the printers or construction or whoever it's going to as far as manufacturing from there.
And those sheets, how large are they when you take delivery of them?
Yeah, we you can get them in a lot of different sizes, and a lot of mills will cut them to whatever size you want. But ours are anywhere from 20 by 30 to 50 by 40. We purchase a lot of different sizes, especially right now. Kind of just buy whatever. I've been buying whatever is out there and whatever I can find. So we can make just about anything work.
Right. So this 50 by 40, are we talking centimeters, inches?
Inches.
Okay, great. And presumably it comes white, so like unstained?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you can get it. Some of the mills are able to do some different things with it. They can put different coatings on it, depending on how you're printing or what you're doing with it. We've even purchased it before with like a silver metallic on it. And so, yeah, there's lots of different ways. Just kind of depends on who's processing it from DuPont or after it arrives at the mill from DuPont. But there's lots of different ways they can process it.
Okay. And just as a kind of like ballpark, so we know where we're starting from. So how much does it cost to buy Tyvek sort of in bulk?
Sure. It's again, it varies. There's a lot of variables. DuPont makes, I want to say there's 6 or 7 different kind of grades or models of Tyvek that they make for printing specifically. And the price range, I mean, it's anywhere from $1 a sheet to $2 or $3 a sheet, kind of depending on the exact spec or size and whatnot. Average for us is between probably $1.50 a sheet up to about $2.25 a sheet.
Which in the end, in terms of, I guess, the raw cost of Tyvek for a single bib. I mean, I know bibs come in all kinds of like sizes and stuff, but like for your standard bib, what kind of per unit cost are we talking about?
Yeah, when it comes down to it, once everything's kind of cut down in size to bib size, the raw costs can be anywhere from probably 8 cents or so per bib on the small end, up to 20 to 30 cents even for some of the bigger sizes of bibs. So for us, it's probably the single most expensive piece when you're talking all the different costs that go into producing a bib. The Tyvek is by far the most expensive piece to that.
Okay. And then, so you take delivery of the 50 by 40 sheets or whatever. I'm guessing you will need some pretty big printers for that, or do you cut that down?
Yeah, so it gets cut down before we go to the press. It's just based on the way DuPont produces it and the different size rolls they make. That's the most cost-effective way for us to get it is in a bigger sheet that we then cut down before it goes to press.
And you guys run your own printers?
Yep, everything is produced here in-house in Portland, Oregon. We try to do as much as we can in-house. And we very, very little do we outsource.
I think that's great. I think, and even if you outsource, I guess we're talking you outsource to other U.S. companies, right?
Correct. Usually it's a local vendor. If there's some special bindery thing or something that, we don't have the equipment to do in-house, or if we're, super slammed and need to just have another place help us out with something. But it's usually another company here in the Portland area that we will use to help us out with that.
Okay, which is great to hear because lots of stuff these days gets manufactured overseas. So it's great to hear that the factory, like the DuPont factory where Tyvek comes from, is in the US, and then they ship to you and everything's kept within the US, which is great, supporting the local economy. Okay, so you get the rolls, you get the sheets, you cut them down. I'm guessing you use specialized printers for that, right?
Yeah, we have a couple different processes we can use for the printing, depending on sizes, and there's some other factors that play into that. But yes, we have several printing presses that are able to run Tyvek, and there's a few different ways you can run it. It's kind of a unique thing to run. There's a lot of printing companies that won't even mess with it just because it's kind of just as unique in the processes you have to use to do it or to print on it, as it is a unique unique substrate. So it kind of makes it unique. Those of us that have kind of mastered the art, I guess you could say, of running it and running it well.
Indeed. And, you'll be delighted to hear that every maybe couple of months in our Facebook group, the Race Directors Facebook group we have, there's always a question about someone trying to print their own bibs. Some of them trying to print on paper, which I guess, is not the ideal material for bibs. But some people also, wonder whether you can print on Tyvek. Is that something you can do on a home printer?
I have not heard a whole lot of success with that. I've heard some people who on certain inkjet printers were able to successfully do it, although I believe it's a rather slow process. I know with like your home or office toner printers, they will not run it well. There's too much heat involved. Since Tyvek is kind of a plastic material, it will melt, and toner printers use a lot of heat to adhere the toner to the material. Toner printers, I've not heard of anybody being able to get a bib through kind of a home toner printer. I have heard of people who were able to do it with an inkjet printer, but it's not the best quality because the ink doesn't dry fast enough and kind of blurs and runs a little bit. So it's not. I've not heard of anybody doing it very successfully.
There's your challenge, listeners. Try to print a Tyvek bib at home. So one other thing about Tyvek, which I think is important to mention in this day and age particularly, can you recycle it?
Yes, it is technically recyclable. It kind of depends on the scale and how much you're recycling and kind of local municipalities. I know around here, as far as like home recycling pickup and things like that, you can put Tyvek in like just your regular home recycling as long as it's relatively small amount. As that scales up and you have more and more of it, it does get a little more difficult to recycle. What we found is most of the companies in our area that will take it and recycle it, they want it to be 100% Tyvek. They don't want any other materials mixed in with it. So it has to all be pre-sorted, which makes it a little bit of a challenge for us as far as the manufacturing process, trying to keep Tyvek separate from everything else and be able to do that.
But having ink on it should not be a problem.
No, as long as it's just ink, they don't like timing chips and things like that get put to the bib. Most of the recyclers do not want to have. They basically will reject it if they find anything like that on the bib.
Okay. Yeah, because I was reading somewhere that Tyvek is classed as that HDPE material or something. So basically it has like people are familiar with the different numbers of recycling for materials, and it's actually number 2, which is sort of in the same category as shampoo bottles and detergent bottles and stuff like that. So, presumably, I guess you can recycle it. Do you guys offer any kind of service for race directors for recycling bibs?
That's funny. You should ask that. That is something we're working on. We're trying to figure out. We've been kind of working on that for a couple months now, figuring out the logistics of how we can do that and make it efficient and economical, both for us and the race directors, and make sure that it's going to work. But that is something we are in the process of figuring out and trying to find some good partners to work with to hopefully be able to do something along those lines.
That'd be amazing. That would be really, really helpful because, it's one of those things that are expendable. I mean, I frame some of them, for the bigger races as people do, but, yep. Most of them, you finish a race and, you just throw it away and you don't think twice about it. And I think probably one of the reasons why you don't think twice about it is because, and I haven't looked very closely, but they don't come with any signage or anything that tells you that they're recyclable, right? I mean, maybe if people saw that on the bib, they would be more inclined to recycle it.
Yeah, we do sometimes print, in the bottom. A lot of us printers will put what we call a credit line, basically just says who printed the bib. And I have seen before where it's been added to that credit line, that it is recyclable. And I know a lot of races are starting to do kind of bib collections at the end of races where, if runners don't want to keep their bibs, they'll have a special bin just for collecting the bibs, so that they can be properly recycled. Because like I said, I know that they're very particular, the recycling companies, about keeping Tyvek separate from everything else. So I know a lot of races are starting to do that. I've heard that the Tyvek is actually recycled into composite decking, the synthetic decking that they make houses with. I've heard a lot of Tyvek goes into that. I've heard some other things, that it's basically melted down, since it is basically a plastic and used for various other things. So I know that it's out there. It's just, for whatever reason, I've heard a lot of people say it's not recyclable, but that is a myth. It can be recycled. It's just not quite as straightforward as some other things.
Okay, but that's interesting. So you're saying it's not a cyclical thing. It's not like you recycle Tyvek into Tyvek. You downgrade it
Correct.
into something else, I guess.
Correct. As far as I know, they aren't able to basically recycle, like paper, where they can take recycled paper and make it into paper again. As far as I understand, it's not. I could be wrong on that, but I believe it's basically then used to make other products after it's recycled.
Okay, cool. So now let's get into the drama with the latest DuPont announcement. So you said something there at the top of the show. Why don't you tell us again what's happening with DuPont and why they're sort of, limiting supplies to bib printers?
Yeah, what we were told or informed of is that they're basically shifting their production away from printing, or the Tyvek they produce for printers, and focusing on medical grade Tyvek. So, like as we mentioned, the PPE, and I know it's used for various other sterilized applications. And so what we were told is, at least through the end of this year, 2021, they will be focusing primarily on the medical grade. I haven't heard if it's kind of a 100%. They're not going to be making any Tyvek for printers, or if they're just, shifting a significant amount of their production that direction. But either way, the result is, we've been told at least through the end of the year, it's going to be very, very difficult to find and source Tyvek.
And when was this announced?
We heard about it probably about a month ago now. We didn't hear. This isn't directly from DuPont. This is through the various mills that we work with to purchase our Tyvek. It's what they were informed of from DuPont.
Okay. And what have you guys been doing since you heard of that?
Well, the first step was basically we started contacting any and every mill that we could find that handles Tyvek, and basically trying to purchase up as much as we possibly could from anybody and everybody who has it.
Was there enough inventory sort of like slushing around that you could get your hands on?
Yeah, we got pretty lucky and found quite a bit of inventory that was already out to the mills. So we were able to buy up a decent amount, which will hopefully buy us some time, which is our next step. Is we're looking at other materials and options that are out there that we could use in the event that we do run out of Tyvek or are unable to source anymore for a time period.
But you think your inventory sort of stands a chance of getting you through to at least end of year, as you said, which is probably when things might come back?
Yeah, we hope. We were able to get enough that hopefully it'll get us towards the end of the year. We're kind of coming out of the peak running season here in the fall. Things, generally speaking, will slow down as we head kind of towards the dead of winter. So we're hoping that what we were able to source will at least get us pretty dang close to getting through the end of the year, if not into early next year.
Cool. And what kinds of alternatives are you guys looking into?
Right now, we're looking at a lot of different things. There's lots of different synthetic materials and plastics and other things out there that have similar properties to Tyvek, at least as far as being waterproof, tear proof, or resistant. But the one thing that we always kind of run into is Tyvek is so unique in its feel and kind of how, as we mentioned earlier, it's somewhat breathable, so it lets those vapors through. And there's very few other products I've found that have those kind of similar properties, and are also, Tyvek is a very expensive material when compared to papers, but when compared to other synthetics and things out there, it's actually kind of a less expensive product. So that balancing act of trying to find something that has the same feel and properties and uniqueness as Tyvek, but isn't very, very expensive when compared to Tyvek as well. So we're in the process of sourcing, getting a bunch of samples to be able to test and see how they work in our production process, as well as how they will feel for the runner and the user, the end user.
So are these materials that people have sort of printed on in the past, or who sort of have market share in the same kind of applications as Tyvek has, and you've just never used them for bib printing, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's materials that are used for like door hangers, signage. There's some signage materials that are a more durable kind of weatherproof thing. But again, when you get into the feel and knowing that somebody's going to be wearing it and running, potentially a marathon or even an ultra marathon, you don't want something that's got hard plastic edges and is going to be poking and rubbing and things like that. So that's been the tricky part in finding a material that will be durable, but yet have, some of that softness and not be, more of a hard plastic like material.
Right. And if we get to that scenario, I guess other people might get there sooner than you guys, given that you've been stockpiling Tyvek, but maybe the whole industry might need to get there for at least some period of time. Would that mean, I guess, higher prices for bibs, for race directors and everyone else?
Potentially. Our hope is to at least have a few different options, kind of depending on what people are willing to deal with as far as the feel. There might be some smaller fun runs and things like that aren't as concerned with how the bib feels when wearing it. So there may be a lower cost option for that. And then potentially, as you get into some of the products that have a somewhat softer, more Tyvek-like feel, it is very possible that the price may go up, but we're going to do everything we can to hopefully mitigate that and keep any increases as low as we possibly can.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because since the whole industry has been relying on Tyvek for such a long time, I'm also thinking that, you guys need to test the new materials for printing and stuff. Then the timers, I guess, may also need to do some testing for the bib tags they put, the adhesives for the foam tags that they put at the back of the bib. So the whole industry may get through a little bit of a trying time, trying to find something that works if Tyvek is not available.
Yeah, it's very possible. I'm by no means an expert in the timing end of things and how all the different RFID technologies work, but yeah, I have heard that there is definitely the material can affect those timing tags and the RFID and how all that's read. So it's very possible that some of that could potentially affect other things down the line as well, beyond just how we print and produce them.
There's no kind of like papery special paper thing that can be used for printing?
There's a few options out there. We've looked at a few kind of more paper-like options, but with paper, it's always the durability side of things. We've actually tested a few more paper-like materials. We've actually used some different paper-like materials for our bike, most commonly mountain biking type events. That is a tear-proof material, but a little, as far as weatherproof, it'll handle a light mist, but if it's a downpour or something like that, it's gonna start to kind of dissolve the paper and just doesn't quite have the durability of again, Tyvek and some of the other plastic materials we use for the bike bibs.
Okay, well, let's hope we don't have to live through that. Let's hope we don't get that. I guess next best thing is we ask all race directors to email a petition to DuPont or something to start printing Tyvek again, if it comes to it. Super. So last thing from you, Ryan, if people on the back of this or anything else want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah, best way to get in touch with us would be visit our website, which is marathononline.com. Most of our products are up there, and there's various ways to contact us through that. There's a contact form, email address. All our information is up on the website.
So if someone has like even questions on the back of, like what's happening with Tyvek and questions like that, they can just hit you on the website?
Absolutely, yeah. Shoot us contact through the website, and we'd be happy to share what we know. We're, like I said, we're kind of hearing it second and third hand, so we'll share what we know and what we're experiencing, and we're happy to help any way we can.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for being my first special episode guest. I really appreciate it on such short notice.
Not a problem.
This has been super informative. We will speak again, I'm sure, perhaps on a future episode.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone listening in, and we will see you guys on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode on Tyvek with my guest, Marathon Printing President Ryan Zirk. And we have a special offer from Ryan and Marathon Printing for 10% off your race bibs order, which you can claim directly from our website by going to racedirectorshq.com/offers. That's racedirectorshq.com/offers. That's 10% off all race bib products, and you can use that offer even if you're an existing Marathon Printing customer. If you've got any questions or thoughts about any of the stuff discussed in today's podcast, come share them in our Facebook group, Race Directors Hub. If you enjoyed the podcast, please don't forget to subscribe or leave a review on your favorite player. And also check out the podcast back catalog for more great content like this. Until our next episode, take care and keep putting on amazing races.